This is the CHGO Cubs Podcast. My name is Corey. I am joined, as always, by Brendan. We are coming to you live on Sunday, August 20th. After the Cubs finish off the Kansas City Royals, they take 2 of 3 this weekend. All told, it is a 3-2 week for the Chicago Cubs. Couple off days on Monday and Thursday. They split 2 with the White Sox, and now they head out on to the road. Brendan, not the prettiest weekend, or week, really, with some bad teams, but you took 2 out of 3 this weekend. I'm not really complaining.
No, I'm not going to complain about any wins either. Kyle looked good today. I'm sure we'll get into it, but seeing him, especially in the context of Stroman going down, good to see. Justice Steele still looks good. Morel, exciting week. Nico performing well. Overall, net positive. Just keep winning games at this point. They may not be the prettiest, but at least they're still winning these games.
Yeah, I know it was frustrating on Sunday, watching that game today. Of course, we're coming to you live right after the game. Hello to everyone in the YouTube chat watching live. If you're watching later or listening wherever you get your podcasts, we appreciate you as well. If you are watching live, hop in that chat. Let us know what you are thinking. Little frustrating, right? Jordan Lyles is very bad, and Kyle Hendricks was very good, but the offense, kind of left it a little close. But at the end of the day, right, like the Cubs are in a lot of playoff races, and the ultimate goal is just to collect W's at this point, right? The offense will get hot again. I believe that. We've seen them be really hot at times. This was not their best week, but their time will come, and at the end of the day, Kyle Hendricks, the bullpen, were able to lock down a W today, and that is what matters when you are it was a sweltering day at Wrigley Field, the true dog days of summer, and you're in a playoff race. Just get W's.
Were you sweating out there in the stands, Corey?
I'm in the shade, so,
okay.
It was okay, but it was
sunscreen on too,
one.
like everything's good, no sun damage?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I mean, I know the offense wasn't maybe up to standards as we've seen over the past month, but this is going to happen over the course of the season, right? Like even today, several hard hit balls. Dansby's getting some unfortunate luck, even though he's been through a little bit of a funk. But this is going to happen. For me, my big concern, if you want to call it that, but the point of anxiety, if you will, is going to be that starting rotation depth. So as long as Kyle looks good and Steele continues to showcase his stamina, to me right now in the current moment, I'm more focused on that than I am on a 5-game stretch where they're not putting up 7 runs every game. I don't really care about that much.
Well, and at one point, at the game today, I yelled, "Enough, Matt Duffy!" What was he making every play at third base?
It was the,
come
Matt
on now.
Duffy revenge series,
I like Matt Duffy, but enough. Yeah. It was enough. All right. We have plenty to talk about. As we've told you guys before, Brendan and I are your Sunday weekly recap show. We'll talk about this KC series, but also, kind of everything that's gone on for the week, get you set up if you're listening to this on Sunday evening or Monday morning, kind of let you get into your next week here as the Cubs head out on the road. Want to talk about Kyle Hendricks, a vintage professor performance today. We'll talk about Justin Steele's outing on Saturday, maybe a little bit of Jameson Taillon on Friday. We'll talk about Cody Bellinger, who just continues his torrid season here for the Chicago Cubs. A big game on Saturday to back Justin Steele. Want to talk about Seiya Suzuki. I got my obvious shirt on, right?
You brought the home run today.
Hit the home run today, yes. Plenty to talk about. I know Brendan has some charts and graphs, and he's going to break down some of these pitchers like nobody else does, at least for the Chicago Cubs. I'm sure there's crazy people out there that talk about baseball like you, the pitching ninja, etc. But if you want graphs about horizontal break of sliders, Brendan Miller is your guy. So let's just start with Kyle Hendricks, Brendan. I think that's the best place to start, coming off of the game on Sunday. The Cubs winning this one 4-3. It got close at the end, a little dicey for Adbert Alzolay there, but we did still get to see the classic fist pump, which means the Cubs won, and he locked down his 18th save. But the story of the day, I think, was Kyle Hendricks. 6 1/3, 5 hits, 1 earned, 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts, a 3.83 ERA on the season, and really just looked like vintage Kyle Hendricks. A lot of weak contact for the Royals, a lot of jam shots, pop-ups, things like that. And the Royals have some good hitters. Bobby Witt Jr. is unreal, right? That speed is unreal. That play he made at short today, Brendan, sliding toward the left field line. I mean, watching that live and then like the replays, that was a really nice play.
I don't say anything good about shortstops other than ours. That's my rule.
Right. Don't talk about any shortstops other than Dansby Swanson. Yeah. But this was an important start for Kyle Hendricks, right? Mostly, he was fine, I think, earlier in the week, gave up a few runs on some weak contact to the White Sox, but settled in, and that's kind of been his MO, right? A friend of the podcast, Michael Cerami from Bleacher Nation, was tweeting out his numbers earlier today. Innings 1 through 4, not so good, but after that, he really is settling in and kind of figuring out a way to pitch to offenses that maybe are figuring some stuff out. But with Marcus Stroman earlier in the week going up to the press box and saying he's not really sure when he's going to be back out there, if he is going to be back out there, and I know you're not expecting to see him again because that's how your brain works.
Well, yeah, it's a normal
we
thing
need
to expect.
We need people other than Justin Steele to step up here, and Javier Assad has certainly done that in his opportunities, and Kyle Hendricks, looking like he did on Sunday, is going to be huge for the Cubs going down this playoff hunt stretch.
Yeah, when we look at what Kyle's doing this year, you see signs and traits that are familiar, and that gives me a lot of comfort. Early on in the games, he's not maybe looking as settled in, but the bulk numbers, Corey, are just as you would expect, even beyond my expectations going into the year. For example, 98th percentile for his exit velocity, 95th percentile chase rate, 96th percentile walk rate, ERA 3.8. He's on pace, if you scale this to a full season, of putting up the equivalent of a +3 WAR season. He's coming off a capsular tear in a competing Cubs team that needs him. Now the Cubs can't afford to not have a Kyle Hendricks with some depth issues, with Stroman going down, with Justin Steele going through his first September. They can't afford to lose Kyle Hendricks. So yeah, maybe you're not going to see the sub-2 ERA guy you saw 7 years ago, but to see this, he's an above-average pitcher pretty demonstrably, and he's looking very similar to how we saw in the past few years here, 89, 90-mile-per-hour fastballs, opposite way changeup in the same window. I mean, beautiful. There was that one strikeout today where he goes, sets him up, the left-handed batter up for a 2-strike fastball on the lower outside corner. First sets him up with that very arm side sweeping changeup and goes right back in the same window with a 90-mile-per-hour fastball. I haven't seen that from Kyle in years, dude. So he looked good. Overall, I'm very confident in him. Of course, you want to see some of the weak contact get suckered in for outs, but overall, this is what he's going to do. Sign me up. This is amazing from Kyle.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at, kind of his recent game log, that start against Atlanta, obviously a tough one, which it has been for plenty of teams against that Atlanta offense. But 5 flat, 2 earned against the Mets, 6 flat, 3 earned against the White Sox, 6 1/3 today, 1 earned against the Royals. If he can give you 5-6 innings, 1 to 3 runs, right? Again, it's not 2016 Kyle Hendricks where he's competing for a Cy Young, but that's what this team needs. They need somebody to go out there and deliver quality starts, keep the team in the game, help them win ball games, stabilize the rotation a bit, not every time, require 5-6 guys out of the bullpen to clean things up and eat those innings. And Kyle's been doing that. So it was a really great performance today. Just nice to see. And yes, as Aaron said in our YouTube chat, they won on a Sunday.
They
It's
did.
great.
Yeah.
I did the show with Luke in the studio on Friday, and after they lost that game, I was like, well, they're going to win on a Sunday this week because they're not losing a series to the Royals. I'm not letting it happen. I don't know what I have to do as a fan in the stands, but it can't happen.
You did enough. It was the Seiya shirt. That's what happened. But before we move on here, I kind of want to hammer this home because for me, it's mostly my expectations. I need to put respect on Kyle Hendricks' name. What he's doing, Corey, is absurd. his career was threatened with a capsular tear. Look at the numbers he's putting up. I had zero expectations he would be a reliable every fifth guy. It was stupid to expect that. And he's doing this in a playoff chase. This is remarkable. It's just another layer to the legacy that is Kyle Hendricks so far. I think what he's doing is one of the most significant storylines of this entire team this year. It's remarkable.
Yeah, I mean it's great and it's needed. It was a great effort on Sunday and one that the team definitely needed heading out on this road trip and trying to figure out. David Ross did announce the upcoming rotation for this next series with the Detroit Tigers, I believe, right? Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Yeah. Yes, the Detroit Tigers, and it will be Javier Assad on Monday, Drew Smyly on Tuesday, and Jamison Tyone on Wednesday. So if you're looking at that, obviously it's been up and down for a few of those guys. Assad has looked great since being given the opportunity to start, I think, especially for a guy that was in the bullpen and has kind of been asked to play a lot of different, wear a lot of different hats. I think he's looked really nice since getting this opportunity because that's not an easy transition to make in the middle of the season, right?
Yeah.
Tyone, up and down. He had been on a really good stretch, not his best effort on Friday, but not, a total disaster, right? I know you have a lot of thoughts on Jamison Tyone.
Yeah.
We can get to those later. The vibes are too good, so I don't want to talk about that start on Friday.
Are you saying that I bring down the vibes? Is that why?
Just yes.
Okay.
Well, for that, maybe.
Okay.
And then Drew Smyly, we've seen him in the bullpen. He's looked nice out of the bullpen, but David Ross was not ever really committed to that, at least when he was speaking to the media. So Drew's going to get another shot. I know there has been a lot of chatter, as Matt says in our YouTube chat, Jordan Wicks.
Yes.
There's a lot of smoke. I don't know if there's a fire to that. There is a lot of smoke in the air about Jordan Wicks. And at some point in this podcast, you guys know Brendan and I, we might be here for 3 hours, right? We have plenty of time. We're going to talk about
I'm in a
PCA.
hurricane. I can't go outside.
Right. We are going to talk about PCA. You best believe it. Because I want him here now. I'll go to Iowa. I'll pick him up. I don't have a car. I'll rent a car and I will drive PCA to Chicago.
I'll split the cost for you.
Yeah. So do want to talk about that, but that is your rotation for Detroit. Detroit, obviously not a good baseball team, but you're going to need these guys to step up because you have to just keep winning ball games. Lots of stuff going on in the chat. Barbara asks, will Steele win the Cy Young Award? We can talk about Justin Steele on Saturday. I think he's in the mix, right? He's going to be in the mix. There's some really good starters in the National League, and, it always depends on what the kind of voters are looking at in terms of the categories and things like that. But Justin Steele has been absolutely fantastic. He picks up his 14th win on Saturday, Brendan. 6 innings, 6 hits, 2 earned, no walks, and 7 strikeouts, a 2.80 ERA on the season. As we've noted, he is blowing past his career innings pitch total, especially at the major league level. So to see him out there doing that, again, Saturday, really hot here in Chicago. The Royals offense isn't good, right? That they have some good hitters. To me, Brendan, what I love to see from Justin, that 0 walks, right? Yeah. He is not going to give you a free pass. You are going to have to earn it. He's striking 7 guys out. He's just been that guy this year, and especially in the context of Stroman being out. Stroman was struggling before he went on the injured list. Now we're not sure if he's going to come back, and Justin Steele has not skipped a beat. He is the ace of this rotation. He is one of the best pitchers in the National League. And to Barbara's point, he is absolutely in the Cy Young conversation.
If you look at his numbers right now, 132 innings. If you just expect, let's say he has 7 more starts, right? And 7 starts, maybe average of like 6 innings per start. It's going to put him around 175 innings, which is like doable. Like he's not on pace to go above or even inch towards 200. So that's like a good sign if it gives some people some ease, but his numbers are absurd this year. His K per 9 is 8.7. His walk per 9 is 1.9. His ERA is 2.8. Like it is the walks that I'm kind of dialing in on. A 1.9 walk per 9 rate is unbelievable. And then I was looking at, because we were talking about Steele for so many years. You go back to those episodes from like 2021 and looking at 2020. The appreciation I have for Steele and just like the Cubs coaching staff to get him to this point, it kind of just went up over the weekend. I forgot what Steele was doing a few years ago. Like, we talked about it, but he was using a lot of sinkers, trying to find a curveball. His four-seam shape was completely different. Like, it had some arm side run 3 years ago in 2021, 2 years ago, where it was about 3 inches of arm side run. Now it has about 1 inch of cut with that induced vertical break, which is like crazy to have that combination and that velocity. So he's kind of like a different pitcher. Like, I always talk about, ALLCITY is the golden child of the quote unquote pitch lab that everyone loves to make fun of. But in reality, like, Steele too has also looked like a very different pitcher over the past couple of years. Results aside, it's really the pitch shapes that he has. That four-seam fastball has undergone like significant surgery. It doesn't even look like the same pitch anymore over a 2-year span. And now he's on the conversation for a Cy Young. It's unbelievable what they've done with him.
Yeah. So, just looking at his numbers across Major League Baseball, he is tied for 10th in wins above replacement. Somebody asked in the chat what his wins above replacement was. It is 3.5, 3.5. Yeah. He is tied with a few people at 3.5. So he is really at around 9th, tied for 9th in Major League Baseball of pitcher wins above replacement. He is second in baseball, I think behind only Blake Snell, in earned run average. And obviously, I'm not telling you this stuff matters, but when you're looking at Cy Young voting and other awards and things like that, it does matter. He leads baseball in wins as a pitcher with 14. He is absolutely in this conversation, and I am prepared to be irate if he doesn't win the Cy Young.
Let me tell you something. If he is not in the conversation, if Dansby Swanson and Nico Horner don't both win Gold Gloves, I'm quitting baseball. That's it for me. You will have to find a different co-host. I will lose all faith. That'll be it.
Okay. Well,
I just had to bring it up. Well, they were talking about it today.
Drop your application in the chat if you want to be my co-host. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, look, whether he wins it, there's obviously a month and a half left. There's going to be a lot of starts, things like that, but he is absolutely in that conversation. They do those shows, I think, on the MLB Network, right, where they invite the 3 guys, the 3 finalists to sort of be up there, and when they announce it, he's one of those 3 guys at minimum, right? Whether he wins it, I don't know. I don't control that. But he's on that dais, right? If you're looking at it that way. So
he's on the dais?
Just incredible. And yeah.
What's a dais?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I can't give him enough credit for doing what he's been doing in the absence of Marcus Stroman. He's his own pitcher, right? They're out there on their own, but they have been following each other. 1-2, they talked about that a lot at the All-Star break when they were both named to the All-Star team, how they kind of looked to lead the rotation and match each other punch for punch. And for Justin Steele to keep it going and continue pitching at a, top of the league level when the Cubs lost one of the, you probably maybe come into the season with Stroman as your number 1, right? Depending on who you're asking. For him to keep doing this, he was already one of the most valuable players on this team. If we're talking about him winning a Cy Young, right? Like, duh. But for him to keep doing this and continue anchoring this rotation in the absence of Marcus Stroman, boy, just, heap any praise and accolades you want on Justin Steele because he has earned them.
Yeah, let's do a quick ad break here. We have a lot to talk about today. Like, I feel like we're at the 20-minute marker, and we're maybe 1 or 2 items on our
Fasten
list.
those seatbelts, folks. I know. We might be here all day.
We might be here the entire night. Okay, let's do these ad breaks here. So this one I'm very excited about. This is a new sponsor. I think the first time I've read this on air is Factor Meal Kits. Now that we're in the thick of summer, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals to support sunny, active days. It was very hot and sunny in Chicago today. Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit that can help you fuel up fast with flavorful and nutritious ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track reaching your goals. Ready to feel your best while making the most of your summer adventure? Stick to your wellness goals with premium ready-to-eat meals featuring high-quality ingredients such as broccolini, leeks, and asparagus. Treat yourself to 34-plus weekly restaurant quality options like bruschetta shrimp risotto, love risotto, green goddess chicken, great name, and grilled steakhouse filet mignon, ready in just 2 minutes. If you're like me, I'm kind of like, I get kind of caught up, like sometimes, looking at some baseball stuff, and the time just speeds by. Like, 2 hours go by. I'm like, oh, it's already 8 p.m. So Factor for me is like perfect. You put this in the microwave, 2 minutes, and you do get like these restaurant quality meals. I was very impressed with this.
They were very tasty. Yeah.
Very tasty.
Jalapeno chicken was great.
Oh, beautiful. With Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice as well. They offset 100% of delivery emissions, source 100% renewable electricity for all production sites and offices, and feature sustainably sourced seafood in their meals. Head to factormeals.com/CHGO and use code CHGO to get 50% off. That's code CHGO at factormeals.com/CHGO. Again, to get 50% off. And just to clarify there, that's CHGO Cubs 50. So CHGO Cubs 50 for 50% off your Factor meal kit. Another break here from our wonderful sponsor, Shady Rays. Take on the sun with gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered for the warm weather ahead with premium polarized shades at an affordable price. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair that we have worn. They have durable frames, extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures. That's not all. Shady Rays offers, as you guys know, the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost and broken replacements. If you lose or break your pair, even on day one, they told us, they will send you a brand new pair. No questions asked. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after your purchase. And together with their customers, Shady Rays is providing much needed support to nonprofit partners across the U.S. through Shady Rays Impact, from building playsets for pediatric cancer patients to providing young adults with MS. The outdoor adventure of a lifetime. Shady Rays is making an impact in your community and others like it now and for years to come. If you don't love your Shady Rays, exchange them for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back. Exclusively for you guys, Shady Rays is offering their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com. Use code CHGO for 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people.
All right, Brendan, as we noted, plenty to talk about. Want to talk about Seiya, want to talk about Cody Bellinger. But before I forget, right, because it was newsworthy, I do want to talk and just give a big shout out to Miguel Amaya on Sunday. A nice game from Miguel Amaya. He's, of course, catching Kyle Hendricks at the plate, hitting ninth, 1 for 2 with a walk and the game-winning home run.
Look at that.
So that, of course, will have him be our DraftKings king of the game. Miguel Amaya, I don't know if Cody placed a bet on DraftKings for Miguel Amaya to hit a home run today. I hope he did, and he's able to cash that. Of course, you download the DraftKings app. Use our code CHGO when you sign up. But pretty easy. Adbert's going to have some games where he, gives up some contact, gives up a run or two, but he had the cushion thanks to our DraftKings king of the game, Miguel Amaya. And he has been catching Kyle Hendricks, Brendan, but he's able to be in there, and we get to see him because I didn't think they would do it. I didn't think they had it in them, but they DFA'd Tucker Barnhart.
I kind of want to smile. I kind of don't want to smile because that's like $3 million
because of the money.
Yeah. I mean, with him and Mancini, first off, the decision had to be made. With Amaya proving to be this good offensively and the defensive trust, and having PJ Higgins back in the organization, which, whether you like him or not, he has familiarity with the pitching staff and the coaching staff. That does matter. He was expendable. It's frustrating, although I understand the process. Yeah. It's frustrating that they signed him for a 2-year deal. Sure. It's frustrating that despite the intention, or the anticipation rather, of them going over the luxury tax next year, the separation from tier 1 to tier 2 on the overage of the luxury tax is only $20 million. So that stuff does matter even if they do decide to go over it. And $10 million for Mancini and Barnhart is just at some point, this front office has done a lot of good this year. But some of these moves, it's like, man, like, what are we doing? Like, this keeps happening.
I think, as you mentioned, and, Vanilla Chill in our YouTube chat and a lot of, people I've seen this chat are kind of taking that as a sign that they're going to spend money. Because if they weren't planning to blow past the luxury tax in this offseason for next season, they would be pinching pennies with guys like Mancini and Barnhart and trying to figure out a way to get value out of them, right? Ultimately, for me, I never liked that signing. I was salty about that from the jump. Backup catcher, defensive reputation, etc. But he was terrible in Detroit. He was an awful hitter here. And I was never really, like, Stroman liked pitching to him, which is, fine. If the pitchers like it, I'm not pitching, right? If they like the game calling, receiving, etc. I was never really particularly impressed with him behind the plate. It didn't look like he was great controlling the run game. One of those recent starts, he wasn't blocking enough. And even if it's a wild pitch, right? Yeah, if it's a wild pitch, technically that's on the pitcher, but sometimes, like, if that's the pitch you're calling, you have to keep it in front of you, right? Like, that's what good catchers do. We saw, I think in the game on Friday, Yan Gomes grab one across his body, like, beyond his other shoe. I've never seen such flexibility from a catcher. Like, that's what you're paying those guys to do. All told, we can be frustrated that they're wasting money or not identifying some of these guys that are past their prime, et cetera, things like that. But ultimately, I give them a lot of credit. It's a little late, and was probably late on Mancini too, but I get it because you're on multi-year deals. They made the tough decision, and they cut bait, and that's what they needed to do, and that's when you are in a playoff race, that is what a serious franchise is going to do. Miguel Amaya, say again?
And what a good learning experience for Miguel Amaya.
Sure,
to be catching Kyle Hendricks.
That was part of, something that a lot of people talked about, that they were frustrated when they were carrying three catchers was, Miguel Amaya has battled through a lot of injuries. You want to make sure that you're not overexerting him and capitalizing on him being able to play at the major league level. But a lot of people wanted to see him more. And obviously, if you're carrying three catchers, Christopher Morel is DHing most days, it's tough to find the at-bat. So I'm very much looking forward to Amaya getting more playing time, being able to work with more of this pitching staff, et cetera. And like I said, look, like people have said it in the chat, like I'm not, very rarely, I mean, in certain instances, if they're bad people, but like generally, I don't know Tucker Barnhart. He seems like a fine guy. I'm not rooting against him as a person. He's not a player on a contending baseball team in August.
It sounds like you just kind of hate the personality. That's to me is what it sounds like.
Right,
you just hate Tucker Barnhart. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like he's just not a player on a roster in a playoff race, especially on a team that is, needs to get all these little margin moves right. Like he just isn't. And so it took him a bit, but this is the move of a serious team trying to win games. It needed to be done, and I'm glad they did it. Now, looking more at Amaya, just really impressive, man, from a guy who has had such an up and down, prospect career to this point, even only being 24 years old. I mean, this guy went from being a top prospect to having injuries derail that, and a lot of people kind of being like, I don't know, he'll have to work back from all these injuries, and we'll see if he can kind of reclaim that status. And here he is winning a game for the Cubs in the major leagues, and he's got a 123 WRC plus on the season in 118 at-bats, 250, 376, 417. He's already got 4 homers. Just like really nice, man. I'm really happy for him, and I'm glad we're going to get to see him more. He did. I tweeted the video of it. I'm sure at Cubs did too. When Adbert did his, fist pump thing today, Adbert does it at like 100. And Miguel Amaya did it after him at like a 50, Adbert's going, yeah. And Miguel Amaya was like, yeah.
But then Dan's in the background doing it at like 5 miles per hour, very gentle fist bump. But the numbers too by Amaya, like offensively, you can tell he's a mature just baseball player given what his profile is. Like this is a catcher who has had sparing playing time and he's chasing already less than your typical Major League Baseball player. His chase rate right now is 26%. That's like crazy for someone who's barely played it at the big league level. And his contact rate for someone who has that power from the catching position is 75%. That's about 1 percentage point away from league average. So this is a young guy who's being thrown in a position where you're catching at sometimes, most of the time, one of the best Cubs starting pitchers in history. And then you have Stroman and a staff full of a mixture of veterans and young guys. It's very difficult to maneuver, I imagine. And it speaks volume to his maturity, speaks volume to the trust that he's earned from a very large pitching and catching infrastructure the Cubs have at the big league level and at the AAA level as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I will also note we are monitoring. It looks like the Brewers are going to sweep the Texas Rangers in Texas. They are up 6-1 right now as we are in the middle of our podcast. So we will update if that changes, but does look like you're ultimately going to lose a game here this weekend, which was certainly not the plan with the Brewers having a tough schedule. But it's a good reminder, like, you got to take care of business. You know what I mean? Put your head down. And I think that's also why, Friday is frustrating. That first game against the White Sox is frustrating. But you come out of this game, and I think your main takeaway is just win games. Like, yeah. I wish the offense were better against Jordan Lyles, but hey, just win games. You know what I mean? Like, you just need to win games. That's all you can do. So we will keep an eye on that. By the time our show is over, we're getting to the end of it, we'll kind of take a full look at the wild card standings, the division standings, and kind of set you up for this week here starting with the Detroit Tigers. And I do want to read, I know we already kind of talked about Kyle Hendricks, but I do want to read this quote. We just got it from our guy, Ryan Herrera, who you can follow, of course, at Ryan_A_Herrera, his great work at ALLCHGO.com. Quote from Kyle Hendricks, what he wants to give the Cubs down the stretch. Quote, it's going to be more than 8 starts. That's what we want to give them. We want to be in that place in October, put ourselves in a good position to make a solid run. So yeah, we're preparing to go deep and pitch as many good ball games and win as many ball games and go deep in October for sure. I mean, that has me ready to run through a wall. Kyle Hendricks is talking about pitching deep into October.
Let's go.
It's not really the answer I expected him to give, but hey.
We were talking when you were at the game. I'm like, are they going to send him back out after 87 pitches? And so that's a sign right there. That should give a lot of fans, because for me, it gives me a lot of confidence that he's going back out to start an inning following 87 pitches in a start during which the first inning was uncomfortable. Yeah. So that's a great sign. That means he's feeling healthy. The velocity sustained itself. And perhaps if everything's fine and things keep going the way they are, you can rely on them come October if the Cubs do intend to, or rather, if they are in position to actually go through a playoff hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, happy with the Barnhart move. Needed to be done, and Brendan will continue to lament that lost money, but ultimately,
don't put that on me. That's like a common thing. Like lamenting that money is like that's I
do agree.
Problem.
I believe that they're going to spend a lot in this offseason. They're going to spend money. They're going to go over the luxury tax, and they're okay with admitting they wasted some money. It's fine. I think it'll be fine. If that, what did you say? It's $3 million. That $3 million. If that's the difference between them getting someone like Shohei Ohtani and not, we'll crowdfund it. All right, we'll be fine. All right. There's enough Cub fans. If they make the playoffs, they make some extra revenue. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
We should talk about. I don't really know that there's more to say about Cody Bellinger than that has already been said. I will say 150 watching live. If you are watching live, hit that like button. It helps us reach more Cubs fans. So hit that thumbs up if you don't mind.
We will be here though for 10 more hours.
Right. So, you have a while.
10 hours to do this.
Thumbs up. Yeah.
I got nothing to do today.
Just after a game like Saturday though, Brendan, it does feel like we have to at least acknowledge Cody Bellinger again, even if we don't have anything particularly.
What is this, the Cody Bellinger podcast now?
I don't know what else there is to say, but even with an offer on Sunday, he does have a sac fly that drives in a run early in this game.
I thought that was going out,
372, 561, a 147 WRC plus. He's already been worth north of 4 wins above replacement. He's great on defense. He's stealing bases. He's got 20 homers. The second homer of his 2-homer game on Saturday was his 20th of the season. And as we've been monitoring all season, again, I give Brendan credit very rarely for anything.
Wow.
But I do
This
give
is
him
a
credit
great moment.
that you identified early in this season that his K rate and contact rate was the thing to watch, because that is what drastically changed from when he was really good in Los Angeles to when he was not so good. Not the only thing that changed, right? He had some good seasons earlier in his career as a Dodger with a higher K rate, but won the MVP in 2019 with a K rate at 16.4%. Right now, after the game on Sunday, it is at 15.2%, Brendan. That is a recipe for success for Cody Bellinger, because not only does it mean he's able to hit more home runs, but it means that he's able to use those legs, put the ball in play, and good things will happen sometimes, even if it's not your best hit ball. But when you strike out closer to 30%, obviously you cut that down. Just, again, we've done a deep dive on this. We talked about him a lot. But with a 2-homer game on Saturday, they got the Air and Water show going on in the background here in Chicago all weekend. You heard it if you're watching, any of these games or listening to these games. And, Cody Bellinger putting on his own air show here on Saturday, just bomb after bomb after bomb. And I love watching him go oppo. It's so satisfying.
His swing is beautiful. I was watching his Little League swing from, 20 years ago now? Looks basically the same. But like in all seriousness, the swing from a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it is quite different. Like, you can just go look at his time post-injury, shoulder injury with the Dodgers, and you map that to what he and Dustin Kelly have been talking about, and you understand the process of what they're trying to do. And they were talking to our guy Ryan Herrera here at CHGO, like, what is the actual process? And when they came in spring, yes, he was healthy, but there's a common theme that I pick up on when Dustin Kelly talks about hitting. Like, he has some certain phrases and words. I think we all do, but like, he in particular uses the word sights, setting sights very often. Like, Joe Madden used like these different phrases too. He loved like these consistent phrases. But for Dustin Kelly, like, he always says set sights, set sights, set sights. And one of the intention was to combat up fastballs elevated up in a strike zone. And he's done that. And then he was talking to Ryan, since Cody's been able to successfully hit those up and in fastballs, they've been trying to drop in curveballs to Cody Bellinger ahead of the count, even to start counts. And then Dustin Kelly said, well, now he's attacking curveballs. So there's really nothing you can do to get this guy out. And then he's talking before the 2-homer game about Cody working on curveballs. Like, Cody was not, this is the trait of an MVP type player. Cody was not happy with his performance on Friday. So he comes to Wrigley early on Saturday, and he's working with Dustin Kelly just on curveballs. And what does he do? Hits 2 home runs, attacks breaking pitches, and has success. That is what makes MVP hitters so unique, because they can identify the problem and rapidly fix it. And you go out the same day and you hit 2 home runs. I mean, what can you say? The guy has been everything and then some.
Yep. Hey, there's always comments when we do this about re-signing him, things like that. We know that like an extension, that's just not something that's going to happen. They're in the middle of a playoff race. Him and Scott Boras are going to want to hit the market. We said it before the trade deadline. He fits what this team is doing, obviously. I mean, you got a guy with 4 wins above replacement in August, 20 homers.
Does he fit the team, Corey?
Yeah, let me tell you. Expert analysis here. Yeah, Cody Bellinger's good. I think they should keep him. No, but even before the trade deadline, you're looking at the positions that he plays. Center, first, he could DH if you wanted. I'm sure you could stick him other places, but he plays great defense wherever you put him. He can steal bases. He's got the power. And if he's got this K rate down, you know what I mean? Like, he's a great player. It's going to cost you a lot of money, right? And that was everybody's plan, right? Like, it works for Cody. It worked for the Cubs. I think they will be in that market, and I think they should be in that market. But as to whether that happens, it's a question for the offseason, right? And how they have their plans laid out. But he absolutely should be in their conversation and someone that they're spending money on.
I'll do this ad break here, but one last point. I would love to see what he and Dansby Swanson watch on the iPads after those at-bats. Like, even today, you're not at the game, so you can't see this, but Nico scores in the first inning. He's rounding home plate to come back to the dugout. and I think I tweeted this, and he's looking at Dansby Swanson like, yeah, like it's like something pitch wise that they're not doing. I love that. Like I love Dansby. Well, I love Dansby, but I love Dansby and Cody Bellinger and like Nika and all these guys. They're communicating together in game, looking at video together, post home runs. I've never seen that before. Like, I know like iPads are new, but that's weird. That's like very cool for me.
You know, we talked about it. One, it's really fun to see so many of these guys in competitive games, right? Like seeing Nico Horner in these big games, you know, Ian Happ, Miguel Amaya today, Adbert, Justin Steele, some of the guys that really haven't been in as many of these games, right? But you knew that you were getting leadership and that, you know, real, genuine, like captain of the team type clubhouse vibes from someone like Dansby Swanson. But Cody Bellinger has done an awful lot of winning in his career as well. He has been with a franchise in LA that in his tenure as a Dodger has only the standard of winning, right? Winning their division and competing for World Series titles. And so I love seeing that stuff. Like, I know you're identifying the little moment, and I love stuff like that. I remember the camera panned out when they beat the Cardinals and Tauchman made that catch in center field, and each of their individual reactions, like seeing winners in this environment is exciting. And, you know, we talked about it on Friday. It's a frustrating loss. And our guy, Greg Braggs, was kind of making the point, like, this is what you want, though, right? You don't want him to lose that game on Friday, but you want competitive baseball. You want to be nervous in the 8th and 9th inning. You want to be frustrated after a loss you feel like they should have won, because that's what competitive baseball is. That is what playoff chase baseball is, and it is a ton of fun watching some of these particular players in this environment.
All right, let's do these ad breaks here. I got all these graphs I've made. I have not even shown them yet. It's been 45 minutes, and you have not let me
burying the lead.
You're killing me here. All right, so let's do these ad breaks here. I'm very excited about this one. This is like my third time doing this ad break, but I genuinely love Circle K. Check out your local Circle K for the best coffee, beer, snack selection, and premium gas. Look out for freebies and giveaways down the road. There's 5 Circle Ks within like a 10-mile radius of where I'm currently at. So if I want to come home from work, you know, I want like a pick-me-up, I want a Snickers bar, something, I go to Circle K. They have locations, I'm sure, by a lot of you guys as well. Thanks to Circle K for sponsoring CHGO, and visit your nearest Circle K to pick up all your favorite finds. Also, CHGO is supported by Goose Island Beer Company, Chicago's beer since 1988. They have a deep beer roster. The Goose IPA, a 6-time medal winner at Great American Beer Fest, always in style, a citrus aroma, a bold hop finish. They also have the Tropical Beer Hug, a dry hopped Imperial IPA that's 9.9% alcohol and dangerously easy to drink. I think whenever I watch Cody's weekend videos, he is like, you can tell he's like 5+ Goose Islands deep. Like every single video, I'm like, oh, is Cody going to make it?
Best way to live, man.
I know. It's like, is he going to make it till Monday? I'm always worried about
Summertime
Cody.
Chicago, Goose Island.
Summer. It's the summer of Mike Talkman, also the summer of Cody as well, Cody Del Mendo. They have the Full Pocket Pilsner, which if you're taking a beer chug, that's the one to use. It's an everyday beer. It's what the brewers are drinking, and they have my favorite 312 Wheat Ale. Grab ultra fresh brewery exclusive beers at Goose Island's original brew house on Clybourne Avenue in Lincoln Park, or from their tap room on Fulton Street in Westtown. Goose Island Beer Company, Chicago's beer. Before we get back to talking more about baseball, final ad break here from our sponsor, Pins and Aces. Pins and Aces is the official golf apparel partner of ALLCITY and CHGO. We love our Pins and Aces and get tons of compliments on and off the course. They are family owned, and they are a wonderful golf and apparel business. They make amazing polos, hats, golf bags, and even our favorite beer sleeve, an innovative product that allows you to store 7 beers right inside your golf bag and keep drinks cold the entire round. Check out pinsandaces.com. Use code CHGO to receive 15% off your first order and get free shipping. That's pinsandaces.com.
All right, Brendan. You've got graphs. Yeah. Which do you want to use? Are
we allowed to like bring down the Vibus a little bit?
No, not yet. Okay. No Tyone yet. Sorry. Let's address the PCA-sized elephant in the room. Everybody's thinking about it. Everybody's talking about it. It is definitely something I'm into. We've talked before that obviously he is an extremely important piece to this franchise long term, and they're going to prioritize that. But you are able to read some of the tea leaves, right? And like you have, he's playing the corner outfield a little bit coming up. That was, I think, reported by Tommy Birch, I think, from the Iowa Cubs. And it's one of those things that raise some eyebrows. Like, interesting. He's an 80 grade center fielder, right? He's going to win a bunch of gold gloves in center field throughout his major league career. Why might he be trying some other positions, Brendan? Perhaps he's preparing for something, right? To me, you're going to want to find that balance, right? Because do they feel like he is ready as a major league hitter? I think the K rate is maybe you'd like that to get ironed out a little bit. Are you going to be able to give him a number of plate appearances that you're comfortable with? Do you want him not playing regularly down this stretch if that's ultimately what it comes up with? But I've seen some people use the phrase chaos maker or a disruptor, right?
That's all fair.
And that is really what my eye is on, right? Because I think he'll be fine if he's in a limited role, if that's ultimately what happens, right? Or if he struggles against major league pitching, because what he can do for a major league team in a playoff race doesn't really depend on those things, right? His speed is elite. His defense is elite. The ability to have someone like him come off the bench and steal a base. You lost a couple close games this week, right? Against the White Sox and then the Royals on Friday. If you had a guy you could bring off the bench that is really a safe bet to steal a base, boy, wouldn't that be nice, right? Or you move the defense around and you have a guy, he made a catch on, I think, Friday or Saturday, where the minor league camera was like panned toward left center. He came out of he wasn't even in the frame and he made the catch against the wall. And that's not even talking about the ones where he's jumping up the wall and all the other stuff he's doing. But he's so fast. He's like shaded to right center and he's coming out of the frame that the camera's not even looking at him to catch the ball. Those skills play in a playoff race. You see teams do this all the time. Billy Hamilton lives a very nice life because he has those skills.
You just
right?
compare PCA to Billy Hamilton?
No, but I'm saying he's living a very nice life because even after he was a regular player, teams bring him in August or September to do just those things, right? So they're going to evaluate how they feel about this, and I know people are going to ask the questions of what does that mean for Mike Tauchman if PCA's in center? Do they plan on playing him at the corner because they have him trying out the corners? That wouldn't really make a lot of sense to me, but whatever. Is Belly your first baseman? There's a lot of questions, but I think the ultimate takeaway for me, Brendan, is the guy has skills that play at this level. He's ready to come up. He can adjust to major league pitching at whatever pace they feel comfortable, but those skills play. And a spark at this kind of time, especially after a sort of meh offensive week overall, sounds really nice.
Yeah, they've been aggressive with these recent DFAs. Been aggressive in at some positions, their lineup. I know maybe Ian Happ. The Ian Happ, their batting third stuff, different discussion or whatever. I personally don't really care much for it, but they have been aggressive with, say, batting morale leadoff. I think that signifies they're willing to be aggressive, even if it makes some fans uncomfortable, or even if it seems too aggressive. And I think that means PCA is definitely on the table. They talked about it too. It came out of the front office. PCA is going to be considered, right? So in my thinking, that requires PCA to continue to have success, obviously, but also success with having traits that are aligned with what you need to succeed at the big league level. And that is making contact for someone like PCA's batting profile. He's not going to be your 30 plus home run potential guy that you've seen other guys in the system like Owen Casey possess, That would be crazy if he ends up being like that, but it's just not in his profile. So for PCA, he's going to have to make more contact. He's going to have a strikeout rate that we currently see at the AAA level right now. He's striking out around 21% of the time. That's pretty good in about 75 plate appearances. That should play well. Like if that translates to the big league level, I imagine that's fine. It's just the idea of, can he succeed at the big league level this year, but not exasperate some of the underlying traits that have led in the past to strikeouts and whiffs? And I think they'll balance that. And there's also a side to me too, where it's like, maybe that's already been passed. Like those early season whiff rates may have just been, a thing of the past, and they are, beyond that. But to me, he has to succeed in a way that aligns well with the big league level, and I think he's doing that so far. I will say I watched baseball all day yesterday. Didn't leave my place. Watched all day. I got this hurricane out here. He's unbelievable. I watched a AAA game. Like, chaos is not even the right word to describe it. Like, he's running the bases. Like, his hair is on fire.
Yeah.
Like, it's unbelievable the energy this guy brings to the game.
I think the Iowa Cubs tweeted out that they had his home to third, like on a triple at like 11 seconds. I mean, he's got blazing speed.
I'm watching the game. He's running second base, and my jaw's like dropped. I'm like, holy crap! Like this is nuts.
I want it. I need it.
Yeah. I mean, if it were me, I'd call him up tomorrow.
It's like that Scottie Pippen gif where he's pointing at his shoe, like, I want it. Come on.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's a good question from Edward in our YouTube chat here. Are the most likely September call-ups PCA and Jordan Wicks? Also, just to finish on the PCA thing, I kind of took him playing the corner outfield more as a, like, he's probably going to get called up, get a little experience tracking and playing left field and right, just because you never know what might happen in a playoff race in the major leagues, right? Like maybe you get put in for a defensive replacement. Again, he should always be in center field. He's an elite center fielder. He's insane, right? But I have no problem with him just trying stuff out, and they just want to be prepared. That was my read on it. I know a lot of other people were like, why would he play the corner outfield? I don't know. That was my read.
I still think that. Like, I don't even think that makes sense. Like, put Tauchman in the corner. Like, I don't care. Like, why?
I agree. But we know he's an 80-grade center fielder. So if they want him to see some balls at the angles and left and right,
you know what they can do, right? Add 5 infielders and let PCA just be, take 2 spots in the outfield. That's the way to do it.
God, Kyle Hendricks would have an ERA of 0 if they had 5 infielders.
Yeah, they'd have to ban the Chicago Cubs.
What do you think about Jordan Wicks, right? So it is interesting, right? And we can piggyback this with the conversation about Tyone if you want to get into some of those graphs and stuff like that. As we mentioned, the rotation for this series with Detroit is going to have Assad, Smiley, and Tyone. I read it earlier. I don't remember if that's the right order, but it's those 3 guys.
Sure.
Drew Smiley's been very hit or miss, right? Looked better, I think, out of the bullpen. But they need arms. They need guys that can start and are stretched out, and this is how they have things set up. I think Jordan Wicks is a really good candidate to come up, and kind of similarly, Brendan, I personally would like to see it. So far this year, 33 innings at Iowa, a 3.82 ERA. He also had 58 and a third innings at Tennessee AA, a 3.39 ERA. He's one of those guys that when the Cubs drafted him, projected to be a fast mover just because he's not a big-time power pitcher, but is someone who has several pitches and understands how to use those pitches to get results, right? I'd like to see it. Again, you mentioned being aggressive with some of the DFAs. I'd like to see him get aggressive with some of these call-ups, right? Reinforcements can really help. The rotation has been uninspiring at times, right? You've had guys step up. You've had Justin Steele leading the way this entire time. There's no guarantee that Jordan Wicks comes up and is successful. And, obviously it's asking a lot, right? You're coming up in very competitive baseball games, right? And needing to pitch well. But I think it's worth a shot, right? Like if we're asking, like, would I rather see like Drew Smiley try to figure it out for this last month and a half, or would I rather they give Jordan Wicks a shot? I'm taking Wicks, and it's not even close.
That's a pretty bold statement from you. I know, like, you've been kind of down on Smiley, and I
meaning I would rather give it a shot, not that I necessarily think it works.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I think Wicks. I retweeted our good friend Greg Zumach, but there's potential this Thursday that he may get called up, just given some of the underlying lineups the Pirates put out that are conducive to Jordan Wicks' profile. We might see him sooner. By the time we talk next week, Jordan Wicks may have already made his debut. That would be kind of cool. That would be aggressive. Then again, I still think if it's not next week, I do think Jordan Wicks will debut this year. I think the days of Caleb Killian getting shots in non-mop-up duty are probably gone for 2023. And I think Wicks is probably the next guy up. Ben Brown, velocity was decreasing over his past starts prior to going on the IL.
Right. Even
Even if Brown was still pitching with health, I do think that Jordan Wicks would get the opportunity over Ben Brown.
So, if we were to see Jordan Wicks, and maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but let's say it happens before you and I are on the air again. If somebody asked you, who is Jordan Wicks? How does he pitch?
I got
what
stuff.
does he do well? What should I expect if he comes up and makes a major league start sometime in the near future? How would you answer that question?
This is what his fastball looks like. So I got to loop this 1 second. There we go. So his fastball, if you're on the Apple feed or the Spotify feed, come over to YouTube, you can see his pitch modeled versus the major league average fastball. So in blue is the major league average fastball for a left-handed pitcher. And what you're noticing is that both these pitches end up in the same location, up and in to left-handed batters, but the red pitch doesn't have as much arm side run to it. Jordan Wicks' four-seam fastball has what's known as like relative cut. So the amount of horizontal break on that pitch is about 3 inches versus the major league average around 7 inches. That's quite significant, and that's why you see on this animation here his four-seam fastball look just a little bit straighter. So that is good. That suggests, given how fastballs play to opposite handedness, suggests that he has a greater potential to negate platoon splits because his fastball is straighter than a four-seam fastball that has more arm side run, like what we've seen with Hayden Wesneski and Jameson Tyone recently, who have about 7 inches of arm side run, and both those guys have been getting hit hard against left-handed batters this year. And then the question is, okay, his four-seam looks good. What about his wipeout pitch? What does he do well for his wipeout pitch? This is what it looks like. So here we have another animation here. You're looking at his changeup in blue. So there's that four-seam fastball that's very straight. There's that changeup in the same window. That changeup is a very comfortable pitch for Jordan Wicks. So if you look at his repertoire in AAA this year, he's thrown his changeup the most of all secondary pitches. He's thrown about 150 four-seam fastballs. He's thrown about 100 changeups. He's been messing with a slider, cutter, curveball, breaker type variation, and that may not be quite there yet. That might be a project for next year. But he does have a changeup that has had success, and he's been pretty comfortable with it for my understanding is most of his time coming out through the system. It's just for him, it's been like, all right, do we settle on that curveball? Do we settle on that slider or that cutter? Or it seems as if, as an outsider looking in, it seems as if they're still trying to find that pitch. But when he debuts, which again I think will happen like this year, four-seam fastball, very straighter than most four-seam fastballs. Changeup in the same window, looks pretty good and has had success. And his overall line in AAA so far, entering Monday, K per 9 of 8.2, walk per 9 of 3.55, ERA of 3.8 in AAA in 7 starts, 33 innings. Looks pretty good. Seems like he's there and he's ready, and we can see him any day.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I think to look for is that a lot of these starts are short, right? So if you were going to bring him up, you were going to give him an opportunity, a lot of his starts, you're not going to be looking to get a ton of length, right? Which I think makes sense, right? Because you don't necessarily want a guy coming up and making his debut going through the lineup 3 or 4 times, right? You'd be happy with a couple times through the order. But, just looking at his most recent starts, on August 17th, 4 2/3, August 10th, 5, August 4th, 5, July 23rd, 5, July 18th, 4, July 6th, 5. So a lot of 5-inning starts, things like that. And guy's young, he's a prospect. There's no reason to blow out his arm, right? But, if he does come up expecting him to go 7, 8 innings, maybe lower the expectations, right? You're just hoping he comes up, is successful, and gets you however many outs he can get you on a particular day, because that's what the Cubs need.
It'd be interesting too with him facing let's say, a lefty lineup, and it does present an opportunity. You get to the fifth, you get to the sixth, you have Hayden Wisniewski in the bullpen. You kind of force the manager's hand to make some decisions. You bring in Hayden out of the bullpen, where you kind of force him to maybe pinch hit earlier on than you would otherwise want as a manager. That'll be interesting. I think of all the Cubs AAA guys right now, pitching wise, I think he excites me the most, because he has a current base that is strong, right? He's not a finished product. He's not going to come up and likely blow teams away. He still has traits and pitches he needs to work on, but I like him because he already has that foundation. He already has a pitch type that suggests platoon splits are not going to be a problem, which I like. And he already has a secondary pitch where she's very strong in and very comfortable in, which I like as well. And then he's also one of those crazy pitchers who you can imagine works hard. He's going to find that breaker over time. And also too, you bring him in this environment with Tommy Hotovy, Daniel Moskowitz, and this major league environment that might help him develop that breaker as well. So it's a win-win for all sides.
Yeah, so very interesting. See how aggressive the Cubs are. See ultimately what they decide to do. I'm for it. And again, even if he's not able to go a ton of innings, it just gives David Ross and Tommy Hotovy some more toys to play with, like you were saying. Ultimately, you got to get 27 outs every game. So however they decide to piece that together, especially with a staff that is, running on fumes a little bit. You've had a good bit of injuries here. And a bullpen that, is being very heavily relied on in terms of a certain sect of guys that are asked to shut down a lot of these close games. Yeah. So I think reinforcements would be good. Do want to talk, we are over the hour mark.
Let's
Corey
go.
and Brendan Sunday experience. That's how it is. I do want to talk about Taillon. I know you've been thinking about Taillon, some little stuff there. And, making sure that he is good for this last month and a half. Obviously, it's a 4-year deal. You're going to want him to be good for a longer period. But you've noted that some of this stuff is going to be tough to fully address in the middle of the season, especially in the middle of a playoff race. But in this start against Detroit, what are we looking for? How do we get him on track? And I think, really the key, there's a few keys for him, but one of the things that I think has been particularly frustrating, even in the games where he has pitched better, he's still having trouble with mistakes, right? He's leaving some spinning balls over the middle of the plate, and they're being taken care of by some of these better hitters. And so what are you looking for in his next start, and how do you think he best can be effective for this Cubs team for this last month and a half here?
I don't know. I think Taillon has so many pitch types that he can make it work. What we've seen in the past 2 starts, kind of worrisome. I think he needs that four-seam fastball. That's something he's talked about a lot and hammered down throughout the entire year, and it's not there. So then the question is, what's wrong with it? I don't have the answer to that, but we can look at what they're trying to do with it. And in addition to, as we've talked about for the past few weeks here, in addition to them trying to get its shape back to a straighter looking pitch, kind of like what Jordan Wicks is doing, they've appeared throughout the year to change their intention of where he wants to locate that pitch. So if you look at where he's locating his pitch this year, which is on the bottom panel of this chart. Again, if you want to see this, come over on the YouTube page. And what we're looking at is comparing his four-seam location. I can see Corey peeking out over my graph right now and distracting the hell out of me. I can see in 2022 as a Yankee, you can see him when he attacks left-handed batters with four-seam fastballs. He's going up and in to left-handed batters. Now, last year with the Yankees, he had pretty good success with that pitch. Now, his expected weight on base average was around 300-ish, give or take, the location in the upper part of the zone against left-handed batters. Now, if you look at 2022, the location seems to have shifted from up and into lefties to up and away to lefties. Now, there's a caveat here. The caveat is that sometimes these contours are kind of skewed, and this is not an accurate representation of their intention, which is all fair. So if you model this using different methods, it might look different. But if you just visually look at the opaque pitch dots, you can see there's many fewer dots in the upper end part of the strike zone to left-handed batters. And that's coincided with an expected weighted on base average of like over 600 in that same location. So the question I have is like why would they do that? So, I was asking, some people who are in the sport, I'm like, what's going on here? And the one idea is, well, they're trying to get his curveball more north to south, and that might be one way of boosting his curveball, which he's had success with over the past couple of weeks here. But then again, it's like, okay, well, the four seam has been getting smacked hard. So my idea would be, well, let's just go up and in like he was doing for the past year and years before that. But then the question is, well, maybe he's not comfortable doing that because he is getting more arm side run. And then ultimately it comes down to, well, this just sucks. And there may not be anything you can do about it. You just got to hope that he can negate some of those lefty platoon issues that he's been facing and just really pinpoint that command with that curveball and still show that cutter in that tight window. And that might be the way around it. But we need Taillon. This team needs Taillon with Stroman out. I can't shake that. To get into a playoff hunt, and let's say you do make a playoff spot, you're in a short series, this team really needs Taillon to step up. And you can't just assume, given some of the recent injury history of Kyle Hendricks, even though he's been phenomenal this year, still, you always have to calculate that there is an uncertainty given that capsular tear. And same thing with Justin Steele. You just never know, given that he's never gone through late September high leverage innings, if he's going to be there, fully. Yeah. So that's why I've always, when I watch Taillon, I'm like, oh, please, let this be the day, let this be the day, let this be the day. Because he has a track history of stamina. And for me, it gives the Cubs another insurance policy in case something unpredictable happens, like another Stroman type injury or setback.
Yeah. So, it's been a mostly solid enough stretch from Taillon. If you go back to that start on July 7th against the Yankees, 8 shutout innings, of course, in New York, that I think led to the Yankees hitting coach being fired. And really they have not gotten out of that tailspin. So if that's your flavor, you can enjoy that. But since then, 5 2/3, 3 runs against the Nationals, 5 2/3, just 1 run against the Cardinals, 6, 1 run against the Cardinals that following start on July 29th. 5, 2 runs against the Reds, 7, 2 runs against the Reds, a blow-up in Toronto, 3, 8 runs that game in Toronto, and then on Friday against the Royals, 6 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, and 2 earned. Defense not great behind him, but again, not great, right? It didn't feel great, right, watching it. I don't know if it felt like a 6-inning, 2 earned start. At that rate, it would be a quality start. I don't know if I felt that way, just the quality of pitching, but it's been mostly fine. You need that to continue, right? You need him to continue to step up, find some better command, be able to execute things better. As we've noted, it is a project going forward. There is a difference between what you're expecting out of him, I think, for the rest of this season and what you'd hope to get out of him for the 3 years left on his contract, right? It's not that easy to fix stuff. The Cubs tried to add some stuff to his repertoire, tweak some things coming into the season. It's not that easy to just ditch them in August, right? So you're hoping he can give you quality starts, keep the team in the game, similar to what we're asking for a lot of these guys, right? Quality starts, eat 6 or 7 innings, keep the offense in the game. That's all anybody's asking from a lot of these guys. So let's see if Taillon can do it. We will see. Detroit is not good. I would certainly hope so. And I saw some people, I can't remember if it was on Twitter or in our YouTube chat, but they did it again this weekend, Brendan.
What?
Stop letting the best guy on a bad offense beat you, They're making pitches to Bobby DeWitt Jr., they just shouldn't be making, right? And we saw it with Luis Robert. We saw it with Pete Alonso. So I think it's Spencer Torkelson with Detroit is the person that you're going to want to be careful for. Here's an idea for the Cubs. They can use this for free. They don't even have to pay me.
Whoa.
Don't throw pitches to Spencer Torkelson down the middle of the plate. Don't hang breaking balls. Do it to somebody else. All right?
Okay.
There you go. Thank you.
If you're a pitcher for the Cubs, listen to Corey and don't hang a breaking pitch to a good hitter.
Well,
it's a good strategy.
It's a good, and you say that sort of jokingly, but they keep doing it, right? Alonso homered in every game. Yeah. Luis Robert wins a game because you're throwing a hanging breaking ball, center cut, right? Beautiful center cut, hanging breaking ball from Julian Merriweather. And then we saw it on Friday with Witt Jr. Like,
I mean, they just trust Tauchman to center field to scale the wall and rob home runs. That's what it is. You know, it's a good strategy.
A little tougher at Wrigley than it is at Busch.
Well, PCA will be able to figure it out. I can see PCA robbing those basket shots.
Okay, so a couple things before we sign off.
We're still going here?
Huh?
We're still going here? Or is this hour and 10 minutes? All right, let's go.
No, we're good. Okay. Just to Edward's point, like every team requires, like, you know, not leaving center cut fastballs to their best players. I think the point is that, and it continues in this stretch, the Cubs are playing teams that just don't have a lot of good hitters. You know, so when you're playing the Braves, sure, if Matt Olson doesn't beat you, maybe Ronald Acuna will. Like, you can't really pitch around people in that lineup. You can pitch around the Royals lineup. You can pitch around Pete Alonso. You can pitch around Luis Robert. The rest of the lineup is garbage. So you just be more careful with that. And it's going to continue with Detroit and then Pittsburgh. Like, they have a guy or two that can beat you, but not a full lineup. So pick your battles, right? Like, don't walk guys in front of the best hitters. And be careful when you are pitching to them. I know they know that, but they keep failing at that execution, Brendan. So it's like, it sounds like a stupid thing to say, but they keep doing it. You know what I mean? Like, this is like a couple weeks now. Yeah. Anyway, I do want to make sure we give some good credit to one Seiya Suzuki. Hits a homer in the game on Sunday. And I think overall, you know, still has some games that don't look great, but I think has looked good since he came back from that little kind of, you know, bench stint that David Ross gave him for a handful of games. His last 15 games here, he's got 4 homers, driven in 9, 264, 268, 566, slugging in 53 at-bats. Last 7 games, hitting 280, 269 on base. So he's not walking as much, 520 slug, couple homers in that last 7-game stretch. And then even going back, you know, his last 30 games, 254, 296, 465. So is he the power hitter that you wanted him to be when you signed him? Is he the player that you wanted him to be? You know, not yet, right? And maybe he does or doesn't become that. It depends if you believe in that. But he's back to an above league average hitter. Overall, 102 WRC plus on the season. He had a nice weekend here, making some nice catches in right field. He looks, I think, more comfortable in right field than he did in his first year. He won a lot of defensive accolades in Japan, so kind of just was maybe waiting for him to acclimate. A lot more games outside. Wrigley Field is a tough place to play. Wind is blowing in, out. You've got those power alleys, things like that. But big home run today. They needed it. I wish they had done better work against Jordan Lyles, who is just awful. But they didn't. But Seiya Suzuki with a very nice home run that for a minute there looked like it was going to be the winner, but it ultimately was Miguel Amaya. So nice to see from Seiya. Nice little stretch here. And, you know, for a guy, again, what you paid him, this production isn't good enough. But for a guy that right now is hitting in the 7 or 8 spot in this lineup, you're just hoping can get on base, do some damage here every now and again. You'll take it for now as we're in the middle of a playoff race.
He's one of those guys, too, that you can see the tides changing, where like he does go on a hot stretch here and he boosts his way back up that lineup. Like, he has that in him. Like, his underlying numbers have been pretty good this year in bulk. I mean, max exit velocity is 94th percentile, hard hit rate 82nd percentile. You know, expected batting average also 70th percentile. Like, he has underlying traits that in theory should translate to success. It's just extreme peaks, extreme valleys. And then, of course, we always talk about this, but Dustin Kelly has mentioned that he has some of the best underlying batting data on the team, even comparing that to like Cody Bellinger and Dansby Swanson and Ian Happ and all those guys, right? So it's there. I think when we talk about extremes and we highlight Cody Bellinger as an extreme, Kyle Hendricks returning as an extreme, Christopher Morel's power surge as an extreme, and some negative extremes as well. One of the extremes that could happen that I think is realistic is Seiya Suzuki finding that next stride. It's not a certainty, and I wouldn't expect it. When we talk about this stuff, it's not to say, oh, he's going to do it. I would not expect it, but I would not be surprised if something just like clicks for him. You know, he's still a young guy, relatively speaking, especially young for someone in Major League Baseball and organizations going through adjustments. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. I think I have to tell myself to be patient with them because I lack patience in general with a lot of players. With him, kind of have to have more patience, but be strategic about it. And I like what they've been doing with him over the past couple of weeks here, playing him lower in the order. In some cases, Tauchman's in the lineup in right field and Seiya's on the bench. I like that, and I think keep doing that. But if he does show signs of breaking out of it, then you start to have to make difficult decisions of like, all right, maybe Seiya should play more than Tauchman. And a lot of similar decisions lineup-wise to that as well.
Well, and I think, it's something we talked about too, heading into the deadline. Obviously, they go and acquire Jamer, who's provided some slug and is one of those guys you can lean on for that. But, part of the thing we talked about is just even getting guys like Happ and Seiya to slug a little bit more. Because you saw it on Sunday. Like, that's why it's so important, right? Your offense is hitting the ball hard in a lot of instances, but it's finding gloves. The Royals were making plays. Matt Duffy could have won a Gold Glove with what he was doing at third base today. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was watching. But you also have, sometimes you just need somebody to slug one, right? To get some runs across, give you some insurance runs, some breathing room, etc. Doesn't have to be an offensive onslaught every day, right? It would be nice, that little stretch.
No, it has to be.
Yeah, if they were scoring 16 runs, 20 runs,
should,
like that's
great.
That's
like
what
that
everybody
every single
wants to
game.
Live. Yeah. But there are those games where, hey, you wish you had done better against Jordan Lyles. You wish some more balls found a piece of grass or something like that. But every now and again, you just need somebody to pop one, right? And if Seiya can just do that, you'd like it more. Don't twist my words, right? But occasionally is what they were lacking for so much of that early portion of the season that it felt like unless Cody Bellinger hit a home run, right, they just weren't going to hit a home run.
Look at it today. It's like the difference with Seiya Suzuki hitting a home run, like
and
having
Miguel
that
Maya.
pop.
Yeah.
And Miguel Maya. But like those are like the instances too. And like Cody Bellinger, sack fly didn't go yards today. But when you match all of that together and you have the capacity to hit home runs, it does provide value. And then we'll get to some more comments here. But like one last point, we didn't talk about it, but like the Patrick Wisdom stuff at first base, like, yeah, he's been awful at first base, but when Seiya Suzuki provides that offensive spark, it allows Ross to offset some of the defensive risk at first base because you don't have to insert Patrick Wisdom in those situations where you need pop, because maybe now your lineup has a better probability of providing that pop, and you can put Cody Bellinger at first base. You can call it PCA as well, and you put him in the outfield, and you put Cody back at first base too. But let's get to the Super Sharp Hour. One of our best friends of the show, Corey Gerard.
Yes.
Gave us $20. Wow. Thank you, Gerard.
Appreciate that.
And we'll read this here. Got to get a super chat in for you both on this rainy Sunday. Great show today. Thanks, Corey and Brendan. Thank you. Yes, it is very rainy outside. I hope my window does not break over here. Actually, it's not that bad.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's somehow all we have for you. If you have any questions, drop it in the chat. We'll try to, see if we can get to it before we sign off. I do want to sort of set the table for where we are as we finish this episode, right? Like, I think there's some games still going on, but the Brewers did win. The Brewers do sweep the Texas Rangers. Brewers pitching staff was lights out this weekend in Texas, Saturday and Sunday, not so much on Friday, but a failed comeback bid for the Rangers. So in the division, the Cubs are 3 games behind the Milwaukee Brewers, just 2 games in the loss column, though, which is always something to keep an eye on as we head towards the end of the season here. The Reds did lose on Saturday and Sunday, so the Reds are 4 games back of the Milwaukee Brewers, 1 behind the Chicago Cubs in the division. And then if you look at the wild card standings as we look at this right now, Philly plays, I believe, tonight with Washington, but I think most everybody else is done. We're doing this live, so I can't look at the scoreboard. But the Cubs hold the third and final wild card spot by a game over Arizona, Cincinnati, and Miami. San Diego is the next team in that race at 6 games. Philly has a 3-game hold on the first wild card spot. San Francisco, a half-game hold in the second spot. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of teams involved. It gets tricky, right? But take care of your own business, beat bad teams, rack up W's. You will get an opportunity at the end of the month here to play the Milwaukee Brewers, to take care of your own business, and everything else. If you do your job, Brendan, everything else sorts itself out.
If I do my job?
Yeah,
my personal
your job.
Okay, let me go make some more graphs.
You need to fix Jameson Tyone right now.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong person.
That's your job.
The wrong person.
One more thing before we go, just something to keep an eye on, because I do see people talking about it. I don't want to ignore it. It has been a rough stretch for Christopher Morel, Brendan. Obviously, a huge moment in the game. Game number 2 against the White Sox. We were there. I watched the Cubs hit a walk-off homer, Brendan, against the White Sox with Luke Stuckmeyer at Wrigley Field. I can't believe it.
Yeah, we did
the
talk
stuff
about
of
that.
legends, right?
Yeah, that was crazy.
But it has been a rough stretch for him. His last 30 games, he's got a 204 batting average with a 301 on base, 361 slug. So that is just a 662 OPS. Last 15 games, it's worse. Sub 100 batting average, 207 on base, 235 slug. But, to me, Brendan, he's 24 years old. He's a guy that, I think not all too dissimilar from Javi Baez in a way where you sometimes are going to have to live with the cold stretches for the hot stretches. The balance between such an aggressive and powerful attack at the plate, sometimes you are going to be too aggressive, you're going to be swinging too wildly, things like that. But there are those moments like that walk-off against the White Sox. You knew, I said it before he walked up to the plate, he is going to swing out of every pair of shoes he owns, not even the ones on his feet, back in his locker. He's swinging out of them.
It's a lot of shoes.
It's a lot of shoes, but that he is going to swing out of them on 3 pitches. And on the third one, right, he hit it out. So that's just part of his game. It's going to be up to David Ross to manicure that, right? I don't love him in the leadoff spot for this reason. He's had a lot of plate appearances that look much more professional, I think, than his early career. And then I think a lot of people would have ever assumed he could have, just with his chase rate and aggressiveness and things like that. He's spit on a lot of good pitches. He's taken some walks. But ultimately, he's 24 years old, and this is going to be part of, I think, his journey, right, is he's going to have some of these extremes. He's cold right now, but you want him in there, and I think he'll turn it around quickly.
The last 100 plate appearances, contact rate of 60%. So, it's very low. Yeah, that's the biggest extreme on this team is Christopher Morel. I do think once all of this ends this season and we get into December and January, I'm curious what this front office does with the roster and morale and playing time of guys coming through the system pretty fast. And one unanticipated, perhaps fast mover is going to be Matt Shaw. And you imagine he's probably destined for third base given his defensive profile. And you have James Triantos perhaps moving through the system relatively fast. I do wonder what that means for Morel's value on this team. And you always had the DH spot, but I do wonder if that's going to be something they want to be more flexible with in the future. So this is all to say, given some of the uncertainties, I do wonder if a way to improve the team is, unfortunately for a lot of fans who love Morel, and I love Morel, he may be someone that's expendable given some of the uncertainties on the roster and some of the guys who have gone pretty fast. So it'll be interesting, but he's one of those players that you just can't project well. So in a way, yes, he's struck out a lot and the contact rate is 60%, but covering this for the past 2 years now, all of a sudden, like this guy just something clicks and all of a sudden the contact rate goes up. He's walking at above average rates, the power's through the roofs, and he looks like the best hitter in the league. So if it ends up happening, I wouldn't be surprised as well. You can't, with Morel, he doesn't fit any type of projection models. Like he just doesn't fit it. Like I can't project this guy. No one can. And so in a way you can be uncomfortable with that, but by being uncomfortable, you're accepting the possibility that like he's going to go through that high extreme.
Yeah, and ultimately, look, like his numbers overall on the season are still great, right? Especially for a guy that is as young as he is and had the kind of quick, kind of surprise. I don't want to say surprise, but like, he showed up and took everything by storm. I don't think a lot of people were expecting that. A 118 WRC plus, 250, 318, 497 slash line. He's got 19 home runs, 60 RBIs. Like you can live with the cold stretches, right? Like it's fine. It's going to happen. He's a young player, and just given his sort of profile, he's going to have those stretches. But overall in the year, he's been a great player. Again, this is the area we've been waiting for years, really. And I know what some of you in the chat are going to say. I have my own opinions. I'm not trying. We're at the almost 90-minute mark here. We're
still going. We are
not having a spirited debate about David Ross. But this is where he has to do his best work as a manager, because you're going to have stuff like this. You have some young players, you have some veterans. You are in a playoff race. You have to win every game. I just read those wild card standings, and we're going to get to a lovely guest comment from the Diamondbacks beat writer out for PHNX, Jesse Friedman, a fellow Friedman, even if spelled differently than myself.
I thought you were going to say incorrectly, but good for you. A lot of respect from you with the double E's over there.
But this is where David Ross, this stuff is tough, right? Like Morel has had a great season for you. He just provided one of the most electric moments in years, probably, against the White Sox the other day. But he's in a cold stretch. He handled it really well, I think David Ross did with Seiya Suzuki, right? And we'll see how they, if Morel can hit his way out of it, or if David Ross has to kind of massage this a little bit. But, this is where you earn your chops as a manager, right? Like you're in a playoff race, you're trying to fend off 3 teams that are a game behind you, and this is where it comes in. So that leads us to Jesse's question. Jesse is, of course, the Arizona Diamondbacks beat writer for PHNX. That is CHGO's brother in Arizona, covering all the teams in Arizona. Of course, we have DNVR in Colorado. Now, Jesse, let's not get combative here.
You're my guy, Jesse.
The correct spelling of Friedman is like me.
He's not wrong.
Freedman.
He's not wrong.
But to Jesse's question, which of the NL wildcard teams concern you the most? And of course, he covers the Arizona Diamondbacks, not obligated to say the Diamondbacks because he is asking the question. That's an interesting question. It feels, I don't want to go on record as saying I'm not scared of anyone, because then if they play them in the playoffs, I'm going to wish that I didn't say that, right? I will say, when you look at especially, I think, who the Diamondbacks with Zach Gallen and Miami with a few of their pitchers would be able to throw in a short series, I think it's those 2 teams, right? Obviously, you have the Phillies up top, the Giants. Both teams have been playing good ball. Philly went to the World Series last year. They have some really great guys on offense, etc. But I think pitching in a short series, right? Like that's where my head is going to go, and so I think those teams in particular would be maybe scarier, just because they can throw guys that can shut you down. Miami just brought back I think Yuri Perez. And added him to that rotation, and he had, I think, like 25 whiffs and, double-digit strikeouts the other day. So I think that's tough. And yeah, as Carlos says, like I don't think Aaron Nola has had his best season, but being able to go Nola Wheeler in a short series, that's tough. So I think that's where my concern would go. I think, again, I'm going to be nervous if the Cubs end up in the playoffs. I'm going to be very nervous. It doesn't matter who they're playing, right? I was nervous all through 2016, and they were the best team in the league and one of the best teams ever, right?
That's correct. What year was that again?
2016, the Cubs won the World Series.
World Series.
But at the end of the day, right, like, and I'm not discounting the Giants or the Reds, but, you know, I just don't, I'm not as worried about who you would be facing in terms of the pitching on a short schedule. Like
I mean, there's two ways to look at it. Like, in a short series, you know, like, I spent a lot of my growing up in Arizona, a lot of PTSD at Chase Field and beating the Cubs at Chase Field. So, you know, a lot of uneasiness there. To even get to that point, you know, we're competing with the Diamondbacks and the rest for the last playoff spot. Like, of those teams, we're so late in the season that you just like flip a coin. Like, you're entering baseball randomness that you just can't predict. I think you look at some of the lineups, though, the Reds don't have the pitching infrastructure that perhaps the D-backs do. But what the Reds do have is they have a lineup that does make contact. And you look at like a lot of their young guys coming up, even this is like Sans De La Cruz, but you know, they have a lot of guys like Jake Fraley, K rate of 18%, TJ Friedl, K rate of 17%, Spencer Steer, K rate under 20%, Jonathan India under 20%. I bring that up because once you put those guys in a shortened window, you know, anything can really happen. And a lot of those guys do have power. And so I always kind of default to the lineups that make a lot of contact with power as well. And they have that lineup. Anything can happen. I hope that whatever happens, Jesse, whether it's the Cubs or the D-backs in the playoffs, or if they play each other in the playoffs and they go beyond that, you know, we all can be friends. You know, that's my goal.
I think that was the answer of two people who were scared of saying they're not worried about someone.
What, you're not worried about the Diamondbacks?
I'm saying you and I answered that question like two people that are afraid of a month from now having on video being like, oh, I don't care about the Reds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to say that.
Well, I'm scared of like the Kansas City Royals. Like, I'm scared of every baseball game. That's my problem.
Everybody.
Let me get to that point.
That's what I mean. So, you know, it's like I feel like some people would be like, oh, give me the, you know, the Giants. I want the Giants. I would never say that.
I will say I am planning of going to Chase Field in mid-September to go watch that Cup series. I'm very worried though, because I've had a lot of bad experiences because D-backs have beaten up on the Cubs.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You're not allowed within 30 feet of Baxter. Is that correct?
Oh man, Baxter, Jesse. If you know Baxter, let me tell you this. He stole my hat when I was like 13 years old, dude. He never gave it back, man. He does like these loop-de-loops across the stands. He never gave my hat back, dude. Still traumatized about that. If you can get it back from me, that'd be great.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. I didn't expect to end the podcast talking about Baxter. The Arizona Diamondbacks.
Clark
mascot.
would never do that. Just saying.
Clark would never. He's also never going to wear pants. So double-edged sword.
That's true.
All right. Setting you up, of course, the CHGO Cubs team will have you for your pre- and post-game needs for this Detroit series on Monday, and then throughout the series, of course, with post-game. Upcoming this week, the Cubs have 3 with the Detroit Tigers, and then they head to Pittsburgh to play the Pirates for 4 games. You have a full slate, 7 days of baseball this week. And if you are looking at where these teams are in the standings, the Detroit Tigers will enter the series with the Cubs just 10 games under 500, so not quite near the 46 games under 500 that the Kansas City Royals are. 57 and 67, they have won 2 in a row, have the Detroit Tigers 6-4 in their last 10, but they also have a run differential near negative 100. We all saw the meme that the pitching ninja made of Javi Baez swinging at a slider that was in another time zone. You know, as Cody would say, look out for the revenge series. We did not get a Nelson Velasquez revenge series, so that was nice. Appreciated that. And then, of course, the Pittsburgh Pirates in the National League Central, 55 and 69, 12 and a half games out of first place, 4-6 in their last 10. That little moment where they were pretending to be competitive was cute, but, you know, not to be for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So before we head out, we will throw in our usual reminder to sign up and become a diehard member at allchgo.com. You get access to all of the articles at allchgo.com, access to the members-only Discord. You get a free shirt, discounts on events and other things going on with CHGO. It is a great value. We met a lot of diehards and a lot of members at the tailgate, the takeover, for that second game of the White Sox series at the Almost Home Bar and Grill here in Wrigleyville. Very nice meeting so many of you. And if you are interested, check out becoming a diehard member at allchgo.com. And I think that's what we have for you. This was a long one. Brendan and I will continue to set records, I guess.
That's right, Jesse.
As we said, we did not have our wonderful producer, Steven. He is doing the White Sox show as we speak. So we are able to go as long as we want because we are not ruining somebody else's Sunday.
Well, you kind of ruined my Sunday.
But that's what we have for you. We appreciate you joining us here for the Sunday edition of the CHGO Cubs podcast. Again, the crew will have you for pre and post on Monday as the Cubs take on the Detroit Tigers. Take care of business, Brendan. Bad teams on the road before you have the Milwaukee Brewers at Wrigley Field. A big series coming up a week from Monday. Rack up some W's here on this 7-game road trip, and you will be in a very nice position and hopefully preparing to be in first place when the Brewers come to town. Thank you guys for joining us. Brendan and I will come to you again next Sunday. And as always, go Cubs.